All right. Xbox Series X.
Hmm.
It is here. And I was able to get my hands on one day one, thanks to Microsoft being the only store that was functioning for pre-orders when I attempted. And I gotta say, overall, I'm pretty impressed with the entire experience. But I do think the best way to sum it up is think about what it's like when you get a new computer. You can do all of the same things that you can do, but better.
Yep. Not a
And
terrible thing.
it's not. And it's a lot of the little things that you don't really think about that I think kind of set this up and make it worth checking out. Now, I'm strictly speaking about the Series X. I have not had any experience with the Series S, although I understand that a lot of the same things will carry over, from one to the other. It's just a matter of graphics and storage space, primarily. This thing is fast. I mean, really fast. You turn it on and you're at the dashboard like that. Um, I actually missed the initial boot up sequence because the system turned on. My TV was trying to figure out what the hell this new thing that's plugged into me is.
Hmm.
It flickered, it went black, and by the time the TV had sorted itself out, I was already at a setup screen. And the entire setup process was done on my phone. It had me basically scan almost like in a Bluetooth way for a console that was trying to reach out. Anybody that's done like a Google Home or an Alexa or Apple Siri stuff, it's probably the same process. You're looking for a device that's casting out a broadcast signal, but it's not yet connected to your Wi-Fi. The
Hmm.
Xbox is doing the same thing, and you just grab your phone, you grab the app, and you link the two together, and it's like, all right, cool. Would you like us to transfer all of your settings from your Xbox One to your Series X? So the answer for me was going to be yes. There really isn't a ton of stuff for me to change. It's going to be the same profile. It's going to be the same, basically everything. And it started just doing its thing through the app, and then it started downloading an update. And pretty soon after that, I was at a very familiar dashboard. But at that point, I didn't have any games installed, right? Um, so that process was a little bit weird. I got to admit, the the servers, I guess, were kind of getting hammered. So the download
Mm.
speeds were pretty throttled, and at first I thought it was an issue with my network, right?
Hmm.
I was trying to do. They have a network share mode where you can have both systems on and transfer games from one system to the other over the network. I was trying to do that, and I was having some really bad luck getting that to work properly. Apparently, you cannot do anything with the system while that's happening. It just has to be strictly transferring the network. The minute you start a game, even if it's not the same game that you're transferring, it just crashes the process. So that didn't work out. So the first day that I had it, I really only had a couple games installed, and it was a little disappointing. But when I went back to it the next day, more and more had downloaded. The queues for downloading stuff had kind of loosened up a little bit, and the network speeds improved. So I was relieved to find out that it wasn't exactly 100% my router's fault. I have to blame Microsoft for some of it, thankfully. But all in all, once I got past that process, things were moving pretty smoothly, and it's nice. I mean, the whole system, it feels premium. If I can use that as a phrase, right?
Sure.
The console itself has this sleek matte black finish to it. It has heft and weight to it. It's very chunky. um, and it's simultaneously smaller and larger than I was expecting it to be at the very same time. And that sounds really weird, but I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I thought that it would be huge.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't, but it was still bigger than I wanted it to be because I struggled to find a spot for it in my entertainment center. Previously, the way I had it set up was all my consoles were in the center part of my entertainment center, and then we have two IKEA bookshelves flanking the left and the right side. So it kind of creates like this very boxy U kind of look to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only spot that the console would fit in would have been the spot where my center channel speaker is for my surround sound, and only if I laid it sideways. And if I moved the speaker, I would not have a place to put the speaker. So that kind of ruled that out. I'm not going to, gimp my surround sound just to have the Xbox there. So then I started investigating potentially putting it to the left or to the right, and we settled on one of the bookshelves on the left-hand side of the TV. And it looks pretty good in that spot. I got to say, it doesn't look obnoxious. It doesn't draw too much attention to the eye. It is standing vertically. I do have maybe 2 inches of clearance at the top, which is a little, I wish I had more space, right?
That would irk me too.
Yeah. And it's, I'm concerned about ventilation, but I've kept an eye on it while I'm playing games. And while it gets warm, it never gets so uncomfortable that I can't put my hand in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm probably in good shape, right? I've actually taken my hand, put it on the system. It's never been so hot that it's uncomfortable. I put my hand on the bookshelf itself, and it's never been so hot that it's been uncomfortable, but it does get pretty hot. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I don't know how to fix that, honestly, without buying a new entertainment stand. Like, yeah. I think, and that's something that, my wife and I have been talking about for a little while. It's in the cards, but not right now. Maybe a little ways down. And now I'm going to have to consider, picking up something that's going to be Xbox friendly. Like, that's,
it's something that normally you would never have to think about, but since these consoles, both of them are kind of odd shapes. Right. Folks that are gamers have to be a little bit more conscious when they're taking that trip to IKEA and just buying like a standard TV stand, because it may not work. And
I'll tell you right now, while the Xbox barely fits, if I had bought the PlayStation 5, it definitely would not have fit. Full stop. I cannot put the PlayStation 5 on that entertainment center at all.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And
it is a problem.
I think it's a problem that, we tend to joke about, but it's legit, it
is legit.
So it's something that we have to kind of look at a little bit further, I think, going forward. These console makers, I understand they have their rationale for doing it, whether it's design or aesthetics, or performance. I was watching a review of the PS5 today, and Modern Vintage Gamer was doing a teardown of it, and the way the motherboard is laid out, it draws heat away from it very efficiently, which I think is great, but it's also at what cost,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think most gamers generally care about aesthetics. They care about heat distribution.
Right.
And that's clear with you and for most of us. And, you can't just shove one of these things into like a small spot.
Right.
You really want to make sure it's got the right clearance, and again, that it aesthetically looks pleasing. It's expensive, and you want it to be displayed well.
Right. Absolutely. So all that out of the way, the controller, if you've had an Xbox One or even a 360, the controller is instantly going to feel familiar to you. They've taken the Xbox One design and they've refined it ever so slightly to make it feel that little bit extra, that little extra premiumness to it,
Oomph.
That little oomph. Yeah. So it's got a little bit more heft to it, a little bit more density, a little bit more weight, which for me is nice. It makes me feel like I'm holding on to something that's not going to break if I twist it and rage, because we've all had those moments where we're playing something, we get so pissed and we're like, you twitch the controller.
Oh yeah.
I can't do that with this. It fights back. The grips have a texture to them that separates them from the top half of the controller, which I'm finding very nice. It's similar to that of the Elite controllers, so they took a carryover from that. They've also brought over the D-pad from the Elite controllers as well, too. The Elites had 2 D-pads that were available. You could swap them out, either a traditional cross D-pad, or you have like this disc that essentially has 8-way kind of markers in it. And they've given you just the 8-way version. You cannot swap it out, but in games like Tetris Effect, it's incredibly precise, and actually way more precise than I anticipated it would be. It felt very natural. It worked well. Pieces go where they tell them, when I tell them, as well, if not better than they did when I was playing the game on the PlayStation 4. And then the thumbsticks seem to have a pretty comfortable height. I didn't notice any, serious difference in the height of those. They do have a bit of a different texture to them, which is nice. And then the triggers actually have a texture to them as well, too. And I feel like even though the system doesn't have haptic feedback, when you're playing a game like, say, Forza Horizon, you are getting a little bit of feedback from the rumble in the controller, depending on what kind of terrain you're driving on. I'm not super familiar with Forza Horizon on the Xbox One, so I don't know if that's something new that they brought over for the Series X. But it was something that I noticed this afternoon when I was, driving my WRX over the dirt paths and drifting corners and shit. So